King Charles and Queen Camilla are making their first public appearance since landing in Australia for their royal tour. You can see those live pictures on your screen there from Sydney of the King and the Queen. They are meeting with children from the Sunday school of St Thomas Anglican Church, which is just in North Sydney this morning. The monarchs are also meeting and greeting members of the public outside the church. There have been long lines of people waiting to meet and greet them.
That's right. Now, as we know, they arrived on Friday evening. They had a bit of a rest day on Saturday, yesterday, and they are now just coming up to their first public appearance here in Sydney. Their schedule, of course, has been scaled back because of the King's cancer diagnosis. We know he is, however, travelling with two doctors to attend to him. Let's cross to our reporter Lydia Feng, who is covering the event for us in Sydney. Lydia, we saw there the King and the Queen arriving at St Thomas Anglican Church, where you are right now. What's planned at this event this morning?
Yes, as you mentioned, the King and Queen have just arrived here at St Thomas Anglican Church in North Sydney to loud cheers from the public here. Some lucky children here from the local Sunday school have met the King and Queen. They're all wearing their Sunday best and waving small Australian flags. The King and Queen have now entered the church, where they'll attend an hour-long church service led by the Anglican Archbishop of Sydney. They'll be joined by the New South Wales Governor as well as the Governor-General. And after that service, they'll head outside, where there'll be a meet and greet with the general public. So some lucky people will have a chance to rub shoulders with royalty this morning.
Lydia, what have the crowds been like there? We saw some really long queues of people waiting to meet and greet the King and Queen, but also some protesters as well.
That's right. I would say dozens of people, locals, maybe that's swelled now, that number, but dozens of people have certainly arrived here from the local community in North Sydney. Grandparents, parents, even babies are here to catch a glimpse of the King and Queen. This was a last-minute public engagement, the meet and greet. So some of these people only found out yesterday and have turned out here. Some carrying flowers, waving Australian flags, keen to meet the King and Queen. There are certainly a lot of police here as well, so security is very tight here. And there's a small group of protesters, as you mentioned, one group holding a sign saying decolonise, and they were chanting as well. But that meet and greet will be at 11:30 today. And there'll be another chance to meet the royals next week, this coming week on Tuesday at the Sydney Opera House.
Lydia, what else is planned after the church?
So they have lots of official engagements today. This is their first day of really attending to a lot of official engagements. So after this church service, they'll be heading over to New South Wales Parliament to meet, I imagine, politicians there, and then heading to Admiralty House to sit down and meet with the Governor-General as well as the New South Wales Governor. And tomorrow they'll be going to Canberra, so I imagine that they'll be heading off to Canberra later today as well.
This is a significant trip for the King, this visit to Australia. It's the first visit by him since becoming King. It's also the biggest trip that he's made since he started that cancer treatment, and we know that that cancer treatment has been paused for the period of this visit just temporarily, and there are doctors monitoring him closely. But it is that scaled back program that the King will be having during this trip for that reason.
Yeah, it certainly is a very much pared back itinerary for the King and Queen. We know that King Charles was diagnosed with cancer earlier this year and is receiving treatment at the moment. It's been paused while he's here in Australia, but his health has definitely been front of mind when planning this trip. Unlike other previous trips, He had a rest day yesterday, which is quite unusual. There are no big evening events planned for the King while he is here. He's only visiting Sydney and Canberra, not going to any other state and territories, and any plans to go to New Zealand were ditched. So it's very much a slimmed down affair, this royal tour here for 5 days. And his health is very much front of mind. People will be watching closely how he goes on this trip.
Lydia, I just want to go back to the fact that you'd mentioned there had been some protests, and we saw some pictures of these protests across the church, I think that we saw. Have they been chanting? Is there a large crowd there in terms of protests?
Compared to the royal fans here, it's certainly only a handful of people there, I would say, and you might be able to hear them chanting now at the moment. I think there's some drumming as well and a megaphone being used, but that protest group is certainly a lot smaller than the people here who are turning out to catch a glimpse of the King and Queen. Many of them here standing, trying to look over the fence at the moment, holding their smartphones to snap a photo of the King and Queen if they can.